Hello and welcome to another episode of the Statesman Talk. Today we are being joined by Dr. Prashant Reddy, who is an Indian American contesting for the congressional office in the US from the Republican Party. In his words, he is an immigrant, a cancer specialist, a military officer, as well as now he's getting into the political space. Thank you, Dr. Reddy. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Deepthi, and namaste. It's my
Namaste.
pleasure.
Okay, so I've said a bunch of stuff about you right now. Please tell us, let's start from the beginning, how you moved to the US, you're an immigrant family, and your education and your journey so far.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I actually was born in India. My parents are from Kadapa in the Nellore area. I came when I was 5 years old, and I've had an opportunity to live the American dream. And I'm very proud of that. And a chunk of that has been borne out through my life experiences, of course. So I grew up in Kansas, and I went to public schools. I went to Kansas State University for undergrad, got a bachelor's degree in microbiology and psychology, then medical school at the University of Kansas in Kansas City. And I trained in internal medicine, hematology, and medical oncology. I had the opportunity to get a master's in public health through the National Institutes of Health Fellowship Program. And then certainly after that, I also got business school training at Harvard Business School. I
You've
practiced
done
medicine.
engineering, medical, and business.
Yes, I mean, I partially finished engineering. I was in the honors program for 2 years in biological and agricultural engineering. But when I knew I was going to go to medical school, I changed degrees to microbiology and psychology. So it's been an awesome learning experience. I believe in lifelong learning. I think we all refine, and we should all be lifelong learners, not just when we're in school. We're in school for our whole lives.
That's true. And why politics? How did it happen? And why did you decide to take the plunge?
Well, honestly, I think it's about service. And so I chose to go into cancer medicine because it was a huge unmet need for people. And we've made tremendous advances over the last 20, 30 years in understanding what drives cancer and then also coming up with solutions because it's great to understand things, but if we don't have solutions, it's only part of the process, right? We got to have solutions. And we've done a tremendous job there. Did the same thing for the military. So after 9/11 happened, I had a choice
Yeah.
and I asked myself, well, what are you going to do about it? And I actually didn't tell my parents, when I was going to join. And I went ahead and did that. And I proudly served for nearly 20 years. I'm a lieutenant colonel at Whiteman Air Force Base. I don't do the heavy lifting, but I'm very proud of the men and women that I've worked with that are doing the heavy lifting for our country to protect our freedoms. And you're right. This is an extension of that. I think politics
Yeah.
is the ultimate form of public service. And that's why I wanted to do this, is because there's a huge, huge unmet need. We need to do better. We can do better. And more citizens need to take that responsibility seriously and make sure that they can actually, make a difference. And that's what this is about, making a difference in the lives of people.
So this aspect of your life, when you want to make a difference and get into public service, is that does that have to do at all with being an Indian or your parents, or is just all you?
No, no, of course it comes from parents. I mean, I think values are shaped from God, most importantly, but then community and parents, right? Family. And I think those are shared things. Like that's not unique just to Indian Americans or just to India. It's certainly true in America as well. And I think those are shared values that we have. And I think those are
In
important
America?
things to fight for. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you did decide to get into politics, why did you choose the Republican Party?
Well, fundamentally, my belief is that the power is in people. And if you look at, public policy, you can have a tension between having the government telling folks how best to live their lives, and then in the other extreme, individuals deciding that they're going to live their lives, the best for themselves, right? Because we all have different values, different goals, different things that are important to us. And so it's this tension between personal freedom and being effective in doing the challenges of being an effective society. And I do think there's a role for government, obviously, right? Individual people, for example, can't defend against, say, foreign aggression, whether
Yeah.
that's a war or, terrorism. There are roles for government that individuals can themselves effectively execute and do well. And so obviously that's that tension. And so that balance, I believe, in more individual personal freedoms and personal rights and the power of people to be amazing. And so I tend to err on the side of believing in people and letting them shape government and letting them reflect what's important to them, as opposed to having a central authority coming in and telling you you're living your life wrong.
Is
This is
that
the
a
way you should
Republican
live.
philosophy
It is a core
party?
philosophy of conservatism, which
Okay.
is individual rights and personal freedoms
Mhm.
as
And
being the
minimum
core function.
governance.
Yeah, minimum governance, but effective governance. Minimum
Effective governance.
governance, government doesn't mean that you can't have any governance, right? So, for example, in economics, there's really cool, theories on
Mhm.
why free markets work. And, people over many years have talked about, say, socialist principles or communist principles applying to business. And indefinitely, those systems will never fully work because you don't have the information that can centralize in such a way to make effective decisions. So having people that have their knowledge, in their field at that point in time is always more effective when they're making a transaction or trying to understand how to move economics than having a central planning authority. And that is the core of free market. That's a core principle of believing in individuals again and believing in them. That's what conservatism and conservative philosophy and Republicans, they're a label. But I think part of that label is that they believe in some of these conservative philosophies, and then the belief in individual freedoms and the ability of people to live their best lives.
Um, this is your first time in political space, if I'm not mistaken. Do you think we're all political beings and you've always been motivated politically while you were working before?
It's such an important question, Deepthi. Such an important question because one of the things I've over the course of my life, right, as you get older and a little bit wiser, hopefully a little bit wiser, right? So, one of the things I've learned is that the power of government and public policy is important. So, what I would tell you is for every person that is watching, get involved because these policies impact our lives.
Yeah.
And if we're not educated and involved, we are doing ourselves and our communities and our countries a disservice. That is the core of what democracy represents. And these policies affect our lives in innumerable ways. So if you're not involved, get, and that's the reason why I'm trying to get involved, is because I and fully the impact, say, even on healthcare and how
Yeah.
we deliver healthcare, that if we're not doing it right, people's lives are going to be impacted. That's why it's important.
Do you think people are involved more than ever before? You think social media or, just the environment that we live in, people are more polarized and hence even more political?
And that is the danger, right? So being
Yeah.
involved also means that you're informed.
Informed,
And
yeah.
so, right? And so the danger is that social media in and of itself, you have to ask yourself a question of, do you have the basis in fact of your positions? So, I want folks to be informed and to be involved. So
Is
you
that a
can't
big
just be
danger
involved.
in America? Because even in India, we see everybody is so highly charged, with news, but it's always not the right news. Do you think that's a challenge that you're facing there as well?
It is an absolute challenge. It is an absolute challenge, and it is something that we get right. Because honestly, for me, it's about debate. And I may not have all the right answers, but I got to be willing to listen. And when I don't have the right answers, I have to get better. But on the flip side, you also have to be able to have folks that are willing to listen because
That's
I may have the right answer.
Yeah.
And if I do, I need those folks to understand that this is best for the country, no matter where you live. And we're doing this together to improve lives.
Do you think people are open to that, or they're getting increasingly intolerant to other views?
My fear is that that's the case. And my fear is that that's happening, but I also have hope. And so the hope is that you either believe in the badness or the negative side of things
Or just focus on the
in the
good?
world, or you focus on the good and you focus on
Mhm.
the fact that, look, you can make something better happen, right? Because
Yeah.
life, you're going to fall. You're going to have to get back up, right? So I do believe that, yes, we do live in challenging times, but challenges are opportunities to improve. And that's what we have to
Yeah.
capitalize on.
Are there any other Indians in the American political space that have inspired you before you joined? Or were there some, do you have anybody that you looked up to?
Yeah, so again, hopefully once I win this congressional race, I will literally be in the
You
history of
won
the
the
United
primaries
States.
right now.
Correct, correct.
Yeah, yeah,
So won the primary, but now we're in the general election. I
yeah.
am running as a Republican against the incumbent
From
Democrat um,
Kansas.
from Kansas. It's the
Mm,
third district, the congressional district in Kansas. It's basically the Kansas City metro area.
mm,
If I'm lucky enough to win and represent the people, I
mm.
will literally be the second Indian American in the history of the United States to be elected as a Republican to Congress. The only other person that's done this is Bobby Jindal
Okay.
from the state of Louisiana, and there are others too, right? I'm inspired by stories, right? We build and we grow on the works of others, just like we've grown on the work of Mahatma Gandhi.
Yeah.
There are folks in the United States in all of our lives that we build and grow from, right? So Nikki Haley's another person that I admire, and I think she's done a tremendous job in representing the Indian American community. And people like Bobby Jindal and Nikki Haley are important to me because their work has allowed me to understand the importance of public policy and to get involved.
I've heard in your speeches and even in your bio, you mentioned being an immigrant, being a business person, a military officer, as well as a cancer a researcher and doctor. Why do you think you should be elected for this office? How do you think all these things contribute to you being a good politician and a good, a representative of the people?
So the first and most important thing is I will listen. Just like in a doctor's office, cancer is very complicated, but I
Yeah,
don't write my prescription without listening.
yeah,
And so I will listen and I will listen to whoever has the best idea. And so that's the most important thing because we have complicated issues in national debt, inflation, other fiscal issues. We have foreign policy issues that are a challenge: Russia, Ukraine,
yeah,
what's
yeah,
happening in the Middle East, China.
yeah,
Education is an existential threat if it's not done properly, because those are our leaders of the future. If we
yeah,
don't have education policies, we will fail as a country, right? And the list is long: crime, securing the border, and energy policy, and so on and so forth, right? We have a lot of things that we have to get right. And I think my life experiences, being a doctor, being a business person, being in the military, has given me at least enough wisdom to
yeah,
know what questions to ask. And that's what
yeah.
leaders need to do. You're not going to be the expert in everything, but you
Mm.
have to be informed enough to be able to say, I hear what you're saying, but here's my question. Can you answer this? That's what leadership is all about. Not having all the answers to everything, but working with others, working with teams, and saying, hey, I'm going to pressure test you on this because this, or you got to prove it to me. And then once we do that and we align, then we're all going to align together as a team, not just as a party, but as a country to solve these problems.
You've often talked about securing the borders, and as an immigrant yourself, do you see that to be paradoxical, or you think that that's important to you even more than
It
the
is critically important, Deepthi,
yeah,
right? Because again, a lot of this is framing. And so I don't think we do a good job of explaining why.
yeah,
So, what and how are important questions, but the most important question is why. So when I look at the border, for example, a fifth grader would go, could look in a dictionary and say countries are defined how? By borders.
By the
That
border.
shouldn't be, yeah, it shouldn't be controversial, right? It shouldn't be but at the same time, that doesn't mean you're xenophobic or you're anti-immigrant. I am an immigrant. I
Mm.
believe in the power. The United States wouldn't be what it is if it wasn't the melting pot and if it wasn't was a
Anti-immigrants. Yeah.
country of immigrants, right?
Yeah.
So I believe in supporting immigration. But for example, you got to do it the legal way. So in America, there are hundreds of thousands of Indian Americans, just like my family, just like myself, that sometimes waited 2 decades to get a green card and or to proceed to get citizenship. Yet we have policies right now that allow millions of people to jump in front of the folks that have done it the right
Do
way,
you think that
and that's not
citizenship
right.
by birth should be is something that should be challenged now?
Well, look, I would tell you that that's maybe an issue that needs to be addressed, but that is not the most important issue to me,
Okay.
right? The most important issue to me is to say, does the country have a need? And if we do, let's say we have a labor need, is our immigration policy, you know, is amnesty the best way to fix a labor need? And the answer is no.
Yeah.
For example, at the border, amnesty is not a moral argument that's based on geographic convenience. So if we have needs,
Yeah.
other folks are coming to the United States. Look what happened in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Afghanistan, we had people that desperately and rightfully so deserved amnesty from the United States. Yet the way we left Afghanistan,
It was
those
very
people,
abrupt. Yeah.
yeah, and those people lost lives.
Yeah.
Those people served American interests and they lost lives because of that. That is a problem for me. It's a moral problem. And yet we talk about amnesty and then we allow 11 million people to cross the border under the auspices of amnesty, and
Yeah.
we make it a moral argument. And that is hard for me to understand. That is hard for me to understand.
Yeah.
Again, geographic
Hmm.
convenience is not a
Yeah.
moral argument.
Um, what do you think of America's foreign policy right now? Do you think that certain things in the last decade that could have been done differently? America is always people are polarized about American interference in their country matters. Where do you think it should stand today in geopolitics?
Yeah. So my personal opinion, this is another shared value.
Mm.
India is the world's largest democracy. That's awesome.
Yeah.
America has always fought for democracy. They have stood as a beacon on the hill, an exemplar of the power of democracy. So I think that's a shared value. Democracy is important. Why? Again, it's for the people. It's for the
Mm.
people. And that's true. We should defend democracy all over the world. But we don't have unlimited resources either. The United States, as powerful as we are, we can't be the police force for the entire world. And so we have to be thoughtful. So for hotspots, dangerous situations globally, which are accelerating, like Ukraine. I do think the United States should defend Ukraine, but I would also say that we would ask the Ukrainian people to be good stewards of of the money and the resources that we give them. So that means, just like we do in our personal lives and in our personal businesses, we should ask the Ukrainians to have the same goals, right? How are you using the resources? Are we meeting our goals? Can you give us updates? And are we going the right direction? And I think that's fair. That's accountability and responsibility. And while we're still saying we're going to be very supportive, but without responsibility and accountability, then how are you going to measure whether the things that we're doing are actually effective?
And what about Israel Palestine? Where do you see yourself there?
Yeah. So again, I joined the military after 9/11. The things that really frustrate me about the Israeli situation is for us, and 9/11 was a horrible day, but
Yeah.
it wasn't existential for the United States. And when we fought the global war on terror, which is an ongoing war, by the way, it's a never ending war, unfortunately, it was 7,000 miles away, right? That's where we fought the war. For Israel, what happened on October 7th was existential. And these folks, the Jewish people, they've spent eons since their inception as a people not having a home. not having a home. They're not imperialist. They've not had a home till, the late 1940s when the land of Israel was created. And so it's interesting to see that they're framed imperialists because they haven't had a home for thousands of years, no place to go. And this is the only home that they now have. And then the other thing I would say is their threat is 7 miles away. We can do better. The,
Yeah.
the world can do better. And I'm not saying there aren't challenges there. I'm a military person. There is no military person based on the law of armed conflict or the law of war that would say civilian casualties are acceptable. We should do everything possible. Israel should do everything possible to minimize civilian casualties. At the same time, there should be tremendous pressure placed on Iran, placed on Hamas as political organizations, as a country that has clearly funded Hamas. It's a direct extension of Iran to say it is unacceptable. It is against the laws of human rights to use citizens as human shields, to use citizens as pawns in a broader conflict. These are things that are common to every person that we would agree with are core principles to live by. And I think we should put pressure appropriately on Israel, but I think we should put a similarly appropriate pressure, certainly on Hamas, and certainly on Iran to say the same things. We would expect that in this conflict that you follow the laws that we all expect around human rights.
Coming back to the American election, what is your view of Trump as well as Kamala Harris? Do you see merit in the fact that she's a woman and as well as somebody who belongs to, she's half Indian, half African American? Do you see that will resonate with a lot of people, or you think Trump still holds the promise to come back to power?
Look, so what I would say is philosophically, I'm a conservative, and I
Hmm.
do believe in conservative policies. And so, as far as that goes, yeah, I mean, President Trump is the nominee of the Republican Party, and I believe in conservative policies, and I certainly believe in the policies that President Trump stands for.
Okay.
The other thing that I would say is that for me, let me put it this way: my personal bias and opinion is women are smarter than men. I'll just directly say it. And so, but at the same time, I don't think that that's the label that's important, right? I don't
Yeah.
think that I label a woman as being a woman. I'm more concerned about that
I think a
person.
presidential candidate should not be seen through the gender lens,
I don't think it should be seen through any of those lenses, right?
any of those
Because
lenses.
because I believe in what Martin Luther King Jr. said, right? Because at the core, we should be judged not on the color of our skin, and I'll add, not on our gender, not on any of these other labels, but on the content of our character as an individual person. No human
Yeah.
being is perfect, but I would rather say that somebody is an amazing person and say they're an amazing person without those labels, right? That's what I believe, and that I think ultimately the goal when we're
You think she
talking about
lacks in
national.
those, according to you, she lacks as a presidential candidate in some way?
Well, I'm disappointed in the policies, right? And so
Mm.
that's, at the end of the day,
Mm.
that's what I'm concerned about, is that I'm concerned about policies, and let's have
And you don't agree
discussions.
there?
Correct. And so look, this is all about ideas.
Yeah.
Deepthi. It is not about yelling louder
Mm.
or trying to frame things a certain way to get an advantage. I just want the truth. And if your
Mm.
idea is better than mine, teach me, tell me why, and I'll learn and I'll adopt your idea. But that's what the people should expect. That's what the people should
Yeah.
accept. And that's what we should have these debates and discussions on ideas.
Yeah.
By the way, in my race, I have asked I've asked my opponent, to debate me on any issue, any day, any place. Why? Because I believe in ideas and I believe that the people deserve to understand the why. So if you have a better idea, let me present it and let's talk
Mm.
about it. And if it's better, I'll adopt it. But if not, I expect the same from you. So I have asked my opponent, both on
Yeah.
TV and in radio, debate me anywhere, anytime on any topic.
And the attack on Trump, do you think it at all works in the Republican favor, or you think that that's not of consequence as far as you're concerned?
People have talked about, protecting democracy. And democracy is sometimes messy.
Hmm.
But when we talk about protecting democracy and President Trump, no matter what people think of him personally, he represents a large number of folks, a large number of folks.
Yeah,
What
true.
happened that day is unacceptable.
That's true.
That is the most direct assault on democracy
As
that
can
we've
be.
seen.
Yeah, yeah,
And that is sad. And that is sad. And, the protocols that were applied that day, I know something about law enforcement and security through, my military service. And all I can tell you is that kind of display, those kinds of mistakes are unacceptable. Unacceptable. They should be immediately corrected. And there should be, just as importantly, accountability. Accountability, right? I understand saying sorry is important, and that's an important principle, but sometimes saying sorry still isn't enough. And we have to make sure that this never happens again. We can do better. Certainly the Secret Service and law enforcement could have done better. President Trump deserved better, and maybe more importantly, democracy and the American people deserved better.
what do you think of gun crime in America? Do you have any views on making it more secure, especially the gun crime that happens at schools?
Yeah, so in general, here's what I'd say. I do believe in the Second Amendment, right? But I also believe in responsible gun ownership. So there should be no one. My personal opinion is if it takes a license to drive a car, you better be trained in how to use a firearm. You better
Yeah,
apply gun safety rules. Those are things that need to happen culturally. Then legislatively, there are rules on the books that absolutely should be applied and maybe even, reassessed and strengthened, particularly around access to firearms and mental health. And so
yeah.
I do think there are laws that we're not applying effectively. We have to close down loopholes. And then culturally, I think things like, ensuring, gun safety training, ensuring that guns are locked up if you have them at home, ensuring that there's accountability for things like that is very important. So that's really what I believe. And at the end of the day, I mean, Deepthi, I'll just tell you this: criminals are criminal because they don't follow the law. So we can strengthen
Yeah,
laws and we can do what we want. But if a criminal really wants to have access to something, they will break the law versus law abiding citizens, they follow the law. And so in general, what
that's
I
true.
would tell you is we should be thoughtful about the things that we're doing. But of course, nobody wants gun related crime. Nobody wants, unnecessary loss of life. And we need to do better. And we will do better. The question always is, how do we get to that point, right?
My last question to you would be obviously about India. What do you think of PM Modi? And if the Republican Party does come to power, and if you also win, uh, where do you think India-US relationships can go from strength to strength?
You know, I am very excited about the future, very excited. And I think the partnership, I have tremendous pride in being an Indian American. And I have tremendous pride in what India has accomplished over the last, what now, probably about 75 years plus, right?
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
it's an amazing time. And I think the
Hmm.
future for India is bright. And I think the partnership that I think whoever the incoming president is, the relationship between India and America is only going to strengthen. And I think it's economically going to benefit both countries. And I think even militarily, there will be significant discussions in how we can partner and be good stewards of democracy around the world. And I think that's awesome. I'm very excited about that. And I think President Modi, I'm a huge fan. And I believe that President Modi has done a lot to
Yeah.
improve India's standing in the world, and certainly economically, but also I just think generally speaking, I think he's fighting for the average person. I really do.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today, and all the best for your campaign going forward. Hopefully, you'll win and you'll come back on the show with us.
Deepthi, I would be honored to come back on your show and as many times. I'd be excited. And thank you for the well wishes. And again, I want to thank you, and I want to thank your audience for giving me the honor of sharing my message.
Thank you, Dr. Reddy. Hopefully, see you
Thank
soon.
you, Deepthi.
All
Talk to you soon. Bye now.
right. I think that went well without any glitches. Did I
Yes,
miss
I think.
anything?
Okay.
I think, okay, it started. Yeah.
Okay. So
Can you talk about some of the policies that are close to your heart and something that is close to your heart that you want to talk about to the voters?
yeah, Deepthi, let's maybe pause on the topic of education. Certainly culturally in India, around the world, I think education is important. So the first point I would make is that education is an existential issue to every country. It is the
Mm.
future of every country.
Yeah.
The young people of today are the leaders of tomorrow in business, in the military, in politics, in all facets of life. So we have to get that right. The next thing I would quickly say is, what's the purpose of education? It's critical thinking and understanding content like math, writing, arithmetic, science, etc. And so that is the core function of education. In the United States, I'm very concerned about this. And I'm concerned about where the education program is because we're failing young people. When I went to school, it cost me $5,000 to get a college education every year. In my district, it costs between $50,000 and $20,000 per high school student for 1 year. So it's almost 3 to 4 times
Has there
what
been
I
an
paid
increase
as.
in the dropout rate? Do you think a lot
It's
of
not
people
even
are not going for higher education?
Deeply. I think that question is an interesting question. I'm not sure it's necessarily a huge dropout rate. I actually think that it's not so much that it is a potential problem, but I think more fundamentally, we have core things to teach that haven't changed significantly. Um, things like algebra, the periodic table of elements. Uh-oh, Deepthi, I think I think we're completely frozen again. Hello, Deepthi?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, sorry. I can't
Sorry.
I can't tell if oh, so uh-oh, Deepthi, I'm not sure. I think we're going to hit another period of difficulty. So it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
All right.
But anyway, bottom line
Yeah.
is, costs have gone way up, Deepthi, way up. And then even if you look at Department of Education statistics in high school students, math and English proficiency is under 50%.
Mm.
And this isn't about being anti-teacher, because I remember all my teachers going back to kindergarten, but teacher salaries haven't gone up. So,
Yeah.
so the core content hasn't materially changed, algebra, periodic table, etc. Um, the outcomes have gotten worse. The costs have skyrocketed, and we're not even getting those dollars to teachers, and that's very sad.
Yeah.
And we need to understand why those things are happening. And if we don't understand those things, we're failing young people. It's not yelling at young people, it's we're failing to
Mm.
do our job to protect young people and protect their futures.
So that's something which is very close to your heart and something that you'll be campaigning around.
It is very important. And again, like I said, I think the trick here is
Mm.
discussing ideas, refining and improving ideas. And if I'm wrong, I just want to be, shown why am I wrong? Why is it the
So
teacher
you want to keep
salaries
the
haven't gone up?
dialogue. Yeah.
Deepti,
All right.
I
Thank you
apologize.
so
Could you say that
much.
again? Oh,
Yeah. I'm
oh,
saying you want to keep the dialogue open. As somebody who comes from the academics, that's very important to you.
it is critically important. For me, it is
Yeah.
as important as the national debt. It's as important as economics. It's as important as foreign policy. Education is a national
Yeah.
issue. It is an important issue for the future of every country.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Dr. Reddy. Thank you for talking to us today. And
Thank you,
hopefully
Deepti.
you will win. And hopefully we'll get to talk to you again.
I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much and look forward to next time.